Greetings. Planning is a really important part of layout, design, and building for me. I kind of like to know ahead of time where the tracks are going to go, what they're going to do when they get there, and what, just as important, what gets built underneath them in order to hold them up. Now we're getting down to the end of things here on the benchwork construction for our Sugar Pine Lumber Company, Minarets and Western Railroad layout. And this is the last part that has to be addressed, which is the top of the helix that's going to have a couple of log landings on it. There have been several designs for this area. Of course, most modelers who are building layouts do that. They change and they rearrange things and so on. To learn a little more about this layout, Kalmbach Publishing published How to Build More Layout in Less Space back in 2010. There's an article that I did in there about our layout, and it happens to include a track plan. Now, looking at the track plan, right now I'm standing over here in the aisle right between the second deck and the helix. This is Camp 1, a log landing coming up the log line. This is the main line that disappears through a tunnel in here someplace and goes off to the north end staging yard that's visible here on the track plan. And this is what the Sugar Pine Lumber called the 9 line, which was the main railroad line up to the woods. This is about a 3.5% grade roughly coming up the hill. And that's fine because the only things that'll be on this particular line are logging locomotives and fairly short trains of 8 or 9 empty cars. It's all loads going down the hill. Now, the planning for this area, it's a little bit tricky because right here, if you look at the track plan, this is where there will be a lift bridge where the rails jump across the entry aisle. And the lift bridge will come up to allow unfettered access to the logging landing area and the staging yard up in the woods here. The top of the helix here is 63.5 inches. This is 67 inches. It's a little bit inconvenient to get up here and design on that level. Planning this whole thing was going to be a little clumsy working here. And what I decided to do was make a full-size template out of cardboard to work from. That template also was to include the small triangular little landing piece that the lift bridge will connect with over here. There will also be a small 3-track staging yard over here. It's representing a wood staging yard. This was pretty much inspired by Dave Clune's layout, where he has a very narrow staging yard and so forth up along one of the walls of his layout. Very nicely done, very effective. It's going to be about 67 inches high, so even though this is the main entry, 67 inches is right about here. In other words, right about roughly my shoulder height. The average person that comes in the room, and I'm 6'6", so I'm a little bigger than average, but the average person coming in here won't even be aware of that. They'll just walk right past it. To start building this full-size template, I started by collecting some rather large pieces of cardboard. These were cut out to match the exact outside outline of the helix here, glued and spliced together and so forth, white glue, carpenter's glue, and package shipping tape. Now, this is all built to full size so it could come in here and lay right down and be able to exactly duplicate what I was going to build. Some of the tools that I've been using to plan, layout, draw the layout on the mock-up. The first, of course, is a trommel, which has a hole in one end and then holes at different locations to represent different radius turns. And you put a nail in the left end and put a pencil down through here, and you're able to draw whatever radius curves you need. To figure that out, we've got a few. Like this is just curved mock-ups. This is 20-inch radius. This one is 24 on the outside and 21.5 on the inside. Some of those seem pretty tight, but on the landing and the woods operations, that's the way things got sometimes, is sharp curves, steep grades, and so on. And the longest rolling stock that'll be up here are 40-foot log flats, and relatively short 282 tank engines, property that the sugar pine lumber ran. Here's another one that's a 24-inch radius. That kind of helps. And I also, of course, did the photocopy the switches routine, and working with these is a lot better than beating up switches and hanging around with them, although I used some on the full-size mock-up. I also did a drawing representing the length of a 40-foot car, and the little circles are the couplers, so I can tape these things together in strings and be able to use that to estimate how many cars will fit on a siding, for example. And for some of the cars, I also photographed and photoshopped in a little bit of a log load like this just to make them look kind of fun. This is what I came up with as the first template for the top of the helix. As we mentioned, there's a mountain ridge down the center, so you're not seeing either side. You're kind of working isolated over here, and you're not seeing the whole thing. This is a little landing where the lift bridge drops down, and this track is the one that provides access to that 9-line main line that goes to the rest of the railroad. And this, of course, is the wood staging yard. Once again, this is the part that is back along the entry hall or entry walkway, but it's also going to be about this high approximately. So most everybody will just simply, not be bumping into it when they come walking in. Now, I kind of like this idea. The plan with the lift bridge is when the bridge is up, a train will come in and clear this point. The bridge comes up, and then the operator is able to stand right about here and either do the switching here on the classification yard or move on around the other side of the helix to work either this landing or the other landing. Now, in this current plan, this switch back here provides access to this landing and so forth. I have never really cared too much for this particular arrangement because when you're standing here, it's already a pretty high part of the layout. This is a long ways away, and that's quite a reach to get back there and be able to re-rail equipment, or for that matter, clean it or perform some kind of maintenance because of the trees and scenery that'll be around there. So I'm going to be changing this part. Now here you can see we've got the little mock-ups with the log cars to indicate how many will fit there. Got a spar tree indicated here, another spar tree planned here, and a car unit skidder loader here. All of this stuff is pretty flexible. So I'm going to start by taking these guys out. And normally, like I said, I use these photo cutouts, but I have a few switches I taped up here. I'm going to take these out, do a little bit of rearranging, and see if I can come up with something that's going to work a little better. And I've kind of got an idea along those lines. And now that I have my safe to paint in work shirt on, I don't have enough whiteout to cover up these tracks that I don't want to see while I'm doing the new planning. So I'm using the same brown paint that I use as the basis for my scenery. Just a generic brown latex that I can just kind of slop over the existing lines here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be doing some rearranging at the bottom here as well. So I'm going to peel off a few more of these mock-ups and such and see what I can come up with. Most of my logging locomotives, well, all of them will fit through a number 4 switch like this. However, for the sake of or is this a number 6? Oh, geez, hard to tell sometimes. But anyway, for the sake of cosmetics, I'm normally using number 6 because they just look a little better, they operate a little smoother, and they look better in photographs, and that's kind of important to me. I know I'm not going to be doing these again, so we'll cover these up. Probably also cover up a little bit of the mountain ridge. Part of the reason for using these templates, like the switches, is so it keeps you honest when you're planning. It avoids the chance that you're going to try and fudge it like you can drawing it on paper. paint appears to be mostly dry, so we can go ahead and start putting some new lines on here. This is really a lot easier done on a flat surface like a garage floor, for example. However, for the sake of illustrating and catching what we're doing on camera, I've got it up here vertical like this. So we can start working with the trommel here and figure out what might fit. Then we want to connect the old main line here with the old main line there with one that comes all the way through. So we're going to be using the 24-inch radius curve here, which is, not bad. Might even try the 27. A little extra never hurts. We swing it back here and catch the main line coming down here. It's right through here, and it goes up a little bit too far, so we'll bring it back. Try it again. That's gonna cut that. We'll got a nail I put in the top of the trommel here to kind of provide a hinge point. Just make a line with a pencil tip from in the 27-inch hole here. And swing it back around over here as well, back to pick up the original line. And if they don't entirely line up, that's fine. We've got to do a little adjusting here anyway. This is a photocopy of a number 6 left-hand curve switch, 22-inch radius on the inside, 26 on the outside. Good happy medium for a logging type line. And here it would pick up nicely with the main line coming through here, and that could adapt to that. So we'll just tape this one in place to start with. These curved switches are terrific. Not only do they save you a ton of space, especially in a place like this, they also look really good in photographs, and they work well. Come in with my felt tip marker and 24-inch radius curve just to give me something to draw against. So we connect that up there. And I will darken the main line down here a little bit. Again, this is not real critical. This is the upshot of all that messing around. We now have our top of the helix log landing areas and log camps pretty well laid out. We eliminated this switch that was way too far away from easy access for service or derailment, fix, repairs, and so on. So the main line comes down through the log camp 2 here on the outside of the helix, through a little cut here at the bottom, through the ridge line, and then got these 2 curved switches here with the log staging area and loading areas here, plus secondary kind of a team track. This is going to be a significant log camp here, so the team track makes sense. You might have a tank car full of fuel oil, refrigerator car with fresh fruit and foods for the camp, and maybe a car or two that has hardware, machinery, and so on coming in. And this, I really enjoy this kind of planning, and it's a lot easier here than it is doing it on the layout and kind of hoping for the best, because I can get this pretty well nailed down with what I want visually and operation-wise for later on. Over on this side, for example, we put the access switch here to the car unit skidder, which will be next to the spar tree. And, that whole layout, that here we'll be using the main line as a loading line as well for staging loaded log cars. Now over here, at this point, we're ready to start translating this into the 3D layout. For example, maybe make a cut up along through here, which makes this one solid piece. And then we take this piece of the plan, put it down on the cardboard or the plywood, and we're able to cut it out and build that part. Now here also, I'm planning on putting a little bit of a recessed area in here, so the layout surfaces down a bit, just a little bit of a gully to add a little bit of vertical interest, visual interest to the staging yard area. This type of layout planning I find a lot of fun, and it saves a lot of effort on the layout itself. Using your photocopies, your templates, your mock-ups helps out my layout building, and who knows, it may help yours out too.